जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम students. Right now we are recording another video. This is related with against compliance on sanctions compliance program. So let's start from our uh, slides. So from these slides we are talking about the risk-based approach, and in this risk-based approach we will discuss. The topic is mainly the anti-money laundering and talking about the sanction compliance. And in sanctions compliance, we are going to discuss the risk-based approach, know your customer (KYC), and in this particular video, we will talk about the violations, risk, KYC, internal control, and screening. So these are the different topics we'll cover, inshallah. So let's start. First of all, what happens if sanctions being violated? If the sanctions being violated, we will obviously observe that it will result to a huge fine, imprisonment, loss of business, and loss of repute. So these are the serious damages if entity violate the sanctions compliance. And on the other hand, the non-compliance lead to not only the fine but basically the hurdle and problem related with the running of business or the usual processing of the entities. As we seen that US believe in the strong controls, and therefore because they believe in the strong controls, we observe that they are having some sort of extraordinary effort and high fines rate and enforcement of enforce them more seriously, because US believe in that there should be a strong control and people observe, and the general understanding that there should be a strict environment in which there is no chance of violation, or people work and obey the sanctions compliance program. And as for concern with the US environment, OFAC consideration, OFACs basically provide, and its working is on provide the guidance related with the penalties, types of violation, obviously the assessment related with that, is it willingly done or it is unwillingly done, it is done willfully, recklessly. So this should be observed. And sanction compliance program assessment related with the disclosure, even this disclosure is from the entity side, even though it should be assessed that the violation is willful or reckless, it is obviously observed in that case as well. So consequences of violation as concerned, it is already discussed that it might cause penalties and other things, but we gone through that entities might be given some sort of warning and ask for direct action if there is next violation is being observed. And then you see imposing civil monetary penalties, they have to observe, any civil bureau can impose them, and criminal prosecutions that they go through the court proceedings like that due to these consequences related with the non-compliance with the sanctions rule. So after that, the consequences related with the if we wants to know about the what are the bases of fine is depends on, it might be the big fine, it might be the smallest fine, it's depend on that if the entity is running a proper compliance program seriously, or it's a carelessness, they are not working on it. So must be watched that they are having a proper compliance program and how much work and effort they do for that. And moreover, we will see that the deliberate involvement in such activity, if the violation should be done should not be done deliberately, and if it is deliberately, so obviously we observe are the generally big fine are being imposed. And the important thing is that management is cooperating, they are responsible in their regard, and they are taking their responsibility in investigation and support, and they have maintained a proper record of every activity or not. So this is what. So if we see that the fine and penalties are imposed, in this particular session we'll quote some examples. For example, one of the example is related with the US environment. Generally we see that the 1 million US dollar is imposed to an individual, and it might cause 20 years of imprisonment. As we've already explained that US want that there should be a strict control, so therefore their punishments are strict. If you see in Australia, the the biggest fine we observe to an individual is about 450,000 Australian dollar with 10-year imprisonment. But anyway, states and entities are serious about it, and therefore they are adding fine and penalties, and it is increasing day by day. On the if we see that the cases related with the organizations, so here is a PNB Paribas, that's Paribas, and it is related with the with an example. So these particular cases is not based on some sort of priority, it's randomly chosen, and we observe that 8.9 billion of US dollar fine and penalty for the reason that transferring an amount to transferring amounts to Sudan, Iran and Cuba without understanding that the money is being flowed to the you can say money laundering activities, or the people involved in money laundering, or some sort of unhumanitarian activities. Similar sort of activity observed in the HSBC UK 2012, 1.3 billion of US dollar fine, and transfer the amount same to Cuba, Iran and Sudan. So that is being done. So these are few cases put in front of that regarding individuals and then institutions or financial institutions. So you see if you want to see a list of the institution, it is given in this lecture, and if you want to see it, you may pause the video and notify them. And now we are moving towards the core component of sanction compliance program. So if we talk about the core components of the sanctions compliance program, we see that first of all the management commitment as concerned. First of all, we see that by the activities should be clear that management is very much concerned. So activities making as crystal clear that management is really wants to stop such sort of activities, or play by the rules of the game, or some sort of serious towards a compliance program. So first of all, demonstrate that management is committed towards a mere and dedicated compliance personals, means they are hiring personas, making a team of the capable persons who can stop it and who can make obey and act according to the sanctions compliance rules and regulations. On the other hand, the compliance culture. So compliance culture as concerned, talking about the compliance with the international rules and regulation, compliance with the culture, and making some sort of culture in which people understand that they cannot violate and they have to be responsible. So as we know that culture is related to the things that we the way we do the things around here, and if we make some sort of culture, it is sometimes stronger than the rules and regulation, because people follow the norms, and if you make the following the sanction compliance activities are the norm of the organization. So your employees, your member of your team will definitely work accordingly. So, first of all, review it that management review and approval means every activity related with that gone through the supervision, means not gone, passes through the lower staff, it is being supervised. There is a keen eye on it. Keen eye on it. Then the sufficient authority for sanctions compliance unit means sanctions compliance units are be given authority. They can stop the transaction, they can freeze the assets, they have all rights to do that. And then the adequate resources are provided to them, because if resources and staff is not properly provided, they cannot investigate into the in depth and they cannot go to view the all aspect of the process. And similarly, as I've already explained, that there should be a compliance culture, means everyone behave and it's become norm of the organization that they have to work according to compliance program. And if there is seriousness of apparent violations, and means observe that serious action is taken and activity is done, it will given a good message to the total environment and the entities attached with that. So the second one is the risk assessment. As for concern with the risk assessment, we can say that it is a risk based compliance. Risk based compliance in which if we should see that there is change in the environment, and environment is changing, circumstances are changing, and according to change in the circumstances we change, there is a change must be done in the level of risk. So sorry, I should say that the circumstances changes or the environment changes, there must be definite change in the level of the risk. And if level of risk is changes, according to the level of risk we adopt the risk compliance accordingly. Means if there is changes, or we can quote an example that after the 9/11 we see that the environment is totally changed. So now we require more compliance, we require more risk assessment rather than it was before 9/11. So if there is change in environment, change in circumstances, there must be change in the level of risk and there must be change in the risk compliance. So on the other hand, we say that we should go through the every inch. It is consisted of that we should adopt a holistic approach. Excuse. So we adopt the holistic view, or holistic approach means going through the every inch. Next we are talking about how you do the business, means a way of doing business and the party whom you are dealing with. So this is assess that your way of doing business, which parties are involved, and obviously the not only the appearing parties, we go through the list of your product and services which you produce and assess that these lists are and services related with which field and how much risk is it higher, moderate or lower. And we not gone only through the appearing and front appearing entities, we gone through the whole supply chain, or we can simply say that going through the whole value chain, and how many intermediate activities involved or intermediaries involved in that, countering parties, and obviously the geographical spread of the business activity and your supply chain is assessed, and the activities or the entities which are merged in the business are being acquisitions done by the organization, and we see that before that what is the history of that particular entities or organization which are being merged, or rather you acquisite them in your organization. So this is what we've gone through the risk assessment or risk management. So next is the internal controls. Again, I will see that say that the internal controls are basically giving a message to all of the individual working in your organization and people dealing with that you have a controlled environment in which every activity is properly documented. You may say it's a bureaucratic approach in which everything gone through some principles, and every activity can be traced later on, means wherever you want to see that what was happened in past, how these transactions are gone through, what are the parties involved, who is dealing from oversight, the all of the things are in your record. So it means that there should be, number one is a written policies and procedures which cannot be violated by anyone, and then after control must be follow a risk assessment as in the previous heading we see, and test of controls that controls are properly working, because control has to be changed as there is change in the organization systems, procedures and other activities. So another thing which is important is that next is documentation of activities is very important. We already said there is some sort of bureaucratic principle, mechanistic principle, in which we are not going through the simply keeps our things in going on. We must keep them proper file work, proper documentation, and immediate and appropriate action if we find any weakness in our system, and immediately going to do some sort of corrective action to remove it, and communication clearly to all relevant staff about the policies and procedures, because sometimes unawareness towards your own policies might cause the violation of policies and procedures. And definitely there should be personals who should be responsible, and we communicate them to be work according to the set rules. And next is the testing and auditing. Audit first of all must be independent, either it is internal or external audit, but it must be independent, can see that if there is true and fair picture of the things going on, the process is being presented truly, what inside is that, is it a strengthened system, and so you can say having potential to follow the sanction compliance. So that as per comprehensive objective assessment of the OFAC related with the risk assessment and internal control, three components are very important. First is that test and audit function is accountable to senior management. You know that this is basically a function organized by management, controlled by management, yet it should be independent. Means all top management is mentally free and liberal towards accept what are the flaws inside, what are the drawbacks inside, or what are the some sort of problem inside. But senior management make it independent functioning. More of this provide the sufficient authority, means that they can take action. They should have proper skills and expertise of audit, because audit is a technical job and it has some sort of particular temperament in the people to do that, and they are properly resourced if they have to go digging down the activities and searching them. And definitely they should ensure that organization should have tested the procedures and appropriate level of compliance group, so that proper compliance procedures are being followed, and ensure that the learning and finding works, and what we learn from the experience, we can take immediate action on it, if we find any type of the negative testing results. So these are the things related with the testing of the audit. So as for concern with the communication and training, which is the last one of the you can say the component of sanction compliance. So as for concern with the communication and you know that if there is high risk, suppose there is high risk, wherever there is high risk, it require more training. Similarly, more training is required for if there is quick changes in the environment, and similarly more training is required if business activities are changed or business nature of business is changed. So we require more training. So you can say similarly more risk is basically facing the employees who are dealing at the front desk of the clients. So anyway, first of all, an organization should conduct training for the relevant employees who personals at least once in a year, so that if we forget something in the routine procedure, it can be rememorized and rethought process is continued. You know that learning is and training is a motivation as well, and training should be covered sufficient information, means the employees informed the modern ways of the money laundering, the modern ways of the terrorist financing, as these activities are being is a very funny thing that throughout the life we learn from the researcher, we learn from the knowledgeable person, and here culprits and terrorists and money launderers bound us to learn more. They are giving us some new ways, learn them and get them how to stop them. So anyway, involve the suppliers, clients, business partners, counterparties, and all of them to learn and know about what is the inside, what are the new ways of doing money laundering or terrorist financing, and how we can stop them. Next is that if you see training, we first of all decide the scope of that training. Particularly, it's related with the product and services offered for a customer and partnering relationship throughout the world, so that our learning is beneficial for others and giving them benefit, and you can say sharing the experience and making them able to support you in this particular cause. And it should be based on understanding the changes. As you see that already explained, if there are changes, the risk level is increased, and if risk level is increased, we require training, more training. So training should be frequent according to the assessment of the risk. If the risk profile is changed, the training profile, training method is changed, the training profile is changed. So training also ensure that there should be immediate and effective corrective action. And what should the corrective action? For some sort of weakness or deficiencies observed, and if there is deficiency in the staff, we immediately arrange the training and make them able to compliance with according to the compliance program. And last one, training should also contain the sufficient material and literature. So as for concern this particular training program, first of all we determine the objective, we see what is the scope of the training, and that we decide the content of the training, and after deciding the content of the training, we prepare the literature or the all we can say the material which is to be presented in front of the trainees, and we include some exercises, some sort of case studies based on the latest activities going in the field of finance, banking, and other sections, particularly to which the client or our staff is related, or we are dealing such sort of clients. So here we done the 5 components related with the sanction compliance program. So next, what we want to know, in the sanctions compliance program, we have already discussed know your customer, KYC. But that KYC is related in the start of the money laundering. But here KYC is particularly discussed under the light of the sanctions compliance program. Here we have to first of all the customer compliance as concerned. We should verify the customer identity. We should understand the customer's business, what business is doing, and better to understand your customers, more better you understand. It means that the how much understand your customer. If you know your customer above the level we required, or maximum to up to the maximum level, better sanctions compliance program can be run. So we can work with better compliance if we know completely about our customer up to a maximum extent. So as for concern know your customer, first of all we talk about the identification and verification of customers from some reliable data sources. That is it the real person, from its national identity, from passport, and any other reliable source. Particularly we should know that who is particularly a person who is the owner of business, who is the ultimately beneficiary of the business, and we would like to know the should understand the purpose and nature of the business relationship with the different entities, why they are connected with each other, what particular benefit they gain, and obviously the next one we would like to know what goods and services our customer produced, generate. It means that to which particular industry it is related, and where its principal place of the address which is given for opening an account or doing some sort of financial transaction. And we have to know where does our customer where does your customer receive funds and send, means from which source it gains its fund and where it is sending. Both things should be clear, and sources of fund of customer is clear, and sources of wealth should also be clear, from where it's got the. So all of the things must be clear about it. And then you see next is that organization should conduct an ongoing due diligence. It's not means that once we know about all the things and then let it done. It should be a continuous activity, that we are getting the information about and sources of funds about our customer, and we should understand particularly the geographical exposure, from which particular area. Is it a some sort of risk territory or country risk exposure? So these all things must be reviewed again and again. So next is different nodes in the supply chain involved, because supply chain is consisted of the different nodes which are adding value in each of the nodes. So in each of the particular node of the supply chain, we assess that which people are involved, who are the intermediaries inside, where they are located, and what their purpose of in existing in this particular value chain or supply chain, and how it is working. So the rule and the exposure of the business should be clear, that how it's particularly going on. As for concern knowing our customer, it is definitely for the sake of sanction screening. So before the previous slide we discussed know your customer regarding the sanctions compliance program, but here we are going to discuss particularly the KYC sanctions screening. The first screening as concerned, we are more know about the screening alerts. Screening alerts which generate an alert, review the data. What happens? You can say that we get some information from our client, So client information is being tallied, or you can say checked or compared with the list of list of the band or list of the people who are given in the alert list, and we review the data according to that. If the name is available in the list, it means that this is a person about which the alert should be escalated. So anyway, so alert are generated if we find that name, and here it is, the sanction list. The sanction list is a list which found a list of the people to whom some sort of benefits are being prohibited, and other related that they are people are blacklist, or that we might find one hit or multiple hits. So as for concern with the hit, you can say it's a perfect match, it is a match to up to a limit, and it is the name is found in the one sanction list, or it is found in the multiple sanction list. So one hit or more hit, and then you see that the threshold. So threshold means the name is matched with the sanction people name present in the sanction 80%, 90%, or it is some sort of score is 100%. But anyway, any two match is identified, or we see that there is a potential match which cannot be discounted, means cannot be ignored. So the alert is being escalated, or alert being generated. So previously, as we see that the people prevalent in the all intermediaries in the value chain, we must also know about them and investigate them, that the parties working on behalf of the client are interacting with the clients, and we carefully see the parties process related with all activities, particularly the vendors, suppliers, agents, beneficiaries, customers, exporters, distributors, and more observable point is if there is any joint venture, the joint venturing parties, and if any organization is being merged with it, or this organization acquire any other organization, if there is some sort of subcontracting, any work is given to any other vendor, or you can say outsource activity, and broker and agents, these all things are observed related with that, related with the KYC. So as for concern with the name and screening of the payments, you see it's better to be the activity is done through either through manually or by the automation. So we match an internal record against the sanctions list record, and may also include the batch screening, means either you compare one particular client with a whole of the list, or we are giving 2 or 3 clients batch is being compared with the list. Both our activities can be done. And as for concern with the sanctions screening, done proper accepting a new customer relationship, and it should be done before accepting the customer's transactions, because somewhere after the transaction it is of no use. Obviously we have to do it before the sanction. And comparison with the sanction list, one of the example is that the OFAC sanctions list, at the Office of the Foreign Asset Control sanctions list, in which we add a name over here, and then we find that if that particular person is being present in the list, likewise we have put in the name Saddam Hussein, and what we find it that this is a person name, and an individual belongs to Iraq, find in STN list, and the name we have given is 100% match, means score is 100%. We already written is some sort of threshold, like you understand it that. So after that, somewhere, if we go in the detail, you find it that the some of the related names are identified, like this name you see little difference in the spelling of Hussein, Saddam Hussein. So these are the match, and you see these are the strong matches, and this one is a weak match. And you see these sort of activities are matching. We can say in the next few slide, it's a fuzzy logic is applied, means all of the bit matching entities and names are being given in the list. So as for concern, we have talked about the name screening. Now going towards the payment screening. As for concern with the payment screening, it is obviously we must done before the payment, perform before a payment is being processed. After the payment, it is of no use. So it is obviously related with the current customer, and we focus on the payment screening messages, screening payment messages, because these messages contain some important indicators, by which we can get the more information. As for if you would like to know these important indicator and codes works a lot to identify about the entity whom you are dealing. But if you would like to know what bank or what a financial institution can do if they find this sort of alert, they can freeze the assets, they can stop their payment, they can prohibit the staff and other institutions related with that to stop this person's dealing with this particular guy. And they have to definitely apply the human intelligence, because there are different clues related with that. Some of the very much clear, some of the clear after some matching some indicators with each other. So human logic and human senses must be applied on that. So payment is done. So moving towards the Swift code. So Swift code is very important, because in the Swift code you can understand the first of all the bank code, number one. Second one is a country code. So from this you can know that transaction is related to which particular country, and location tell you the area to which it's belong. So it's very important. And you see more than that, if the last part of it is the branch code, and if you got the branch code, you can assess from internet and other sources that where this particular branch is located, and if this branch is located in prohibited area, in terrorist movement area, then obviously the alert is being escalated. So this is what. So we might go through the programmatic sanctions. So what is programmatic sanctions? Means there should be a proper computerized system, a software based comparison. There are multiple listers available inside, and we compare with them, and after comparing with them, we go through, might be we say already the fuzzy matching, and we saw the all notable sanction issuing bodies applicable list must be there. Likewise, one list, two list, second list, this list must be available. As for concern with the fuzzy matching, we find through the artificial intelligence sometime, like you see here, you see some name like this name is a little bit change in spell. Similarly, you find the Edward spelling of the Edward, and these are spelled in the different ways. And similarly, you can see that some of the things are written in the block letter, and somewhere it's written in the small letters. So these are the difference we find. And on the other hand, the sanctions, we can put some other examples like the three names we say Ginny, Jennifer, Jennifer, if we say in the shortest form. And you see that some of the spell changes over here, a little change, adding spelling, reducing the f. So these sort of changes are being observed to the fuzzy matching. And you see more examples like 1188 limited. So 1188 limited can be written like this, can be written like this. Tehran can be known with the two other names, and Cuba so like that, Iran like that, North Korea like that. So these are the logic which is being compared. As we go through the uh, threshold, or you can say simple risk score card assignment, if the full name is matched, suppose we have allowed the weight of 50%, 50%, birth year match 20%, associated country match 30%. This is just an example. We can quote further important characteristics like the region, area, address characteristics, and other characteristics which might be important for that. So how it's work, we can display by one simple chart over here. Likewise, lists are present in our system: OFAC, UN, others, word check. And on the other hand, we have also maintained a client database internal. This internal client based database, you can say that the inequality list, in which what we do, we will do that in an inequality list, we find that it's a very helpful on our previous experiences and threats escalated, and we have generated the report, and that is also prevalent in the our personal database, from where we can get important information and identify the possible match of the same transaction which has previously being stopped, or which is being previously we have stopped down, so we have not allowed that, or we have generated a report on that, and that's become in front of you. So by this we have got over here, and after that matching engine create a match, and if alert is escalated or generated, we follow the procedure and gone through the procedure and taken the measures which are required according to the sanctions screening process and sanctions compliance process. So what are the sanction list available? Are the name of the sanction list. We have UNO Security Council consolidated sanction list. European Union has provided us a financial sanction list. Similarly, USD list, which we have already seen from the OFAC website, and UK Magistrate Trial consolidated list of the financial sanction targets, and country can have an additional list, likewise list prepared by FIA in Pakistan, and which is provided to the State Bank of Pakistan. So these sort of lists are also prevalent, which are being very helpful. So we are running lot of sanction, discuss a lot about the sanction compliance program, but here we see that some of the challenges associated with that. For example, what we observed, that the sanction lists are updated every day. More governing bodies are increasing day by day, and sanction bodies are also increasing day by day. And you say what we find in the journal list, that the list management is an issue, and complex technology is an issue, and then geopolitical tensions change, and then the risk is change, and the list is keeping changing on, and you must keep them in your database. So I hope you find this video very helpful for you. In this video we have discussed the risk and KYC, and then lastly the screening process. So thank you very much for joining, and Allah Hafiz.